topic that we'd like to present. We have Dr. Brad Roberts, who is here to talk about the intersection of these issues with the healthcare situation in Pueblo. So, Dr. Roberts.
Thank you all for coming this afternoon. I too grew up in Pueblo, and after completing my education and residency and medical training, was excited to return back to my hometown and currently work in the emergency department at a local hospital here in town. My comments today are intended to show that a growing drug culture, rise in vagrancy, and increasing crime are interrelated, and to talk about how they impact us in the healthcare setting. To give an example, a colleague of mine reported recently seeing a patient who had just moved here, self-reporting that they had moved here to use marijuana. They had moved here from a different state and were currently living down by the river. They had come to the ER late at night because they had a skin infection and an abscess that needed draining. These likely would have been prevented had they been living in more sanitary living conditions. They did not have insurance and no ability to pay for health coverage, yet were provided free health care to them. They did not have a job and no source of income, yet were able to gain access to the drugs they wanted relatively easily. Now take that case and amplify that by thousands, and you begin to appreciate the problem we are experiencing here in the healthcare field locally. Certainly the problem is not limited to marijuana. Currently, as reported by multiple news sources, Pueblo is the #1 in the state for heroin overdoses in 2016. Heroin overdose deaths have now surpassed homicide rates in Pueblo. Physicians who have practiced within Pueblo County for significantly longer than me report that over the last 20 years, they may have seen 4 heroin-related cases in their entire career. Yet over the last 2 years, they see it on a daily basis. Mike Saladino has just read to you the statistics from the last Healthy Children survey. That data is pretty striking. Not included in that with our rates are heroin abuse and methamphetamine abuse were 6% compared with 2% for the remainder of the state. That's more than triple. The morbidity and ill effects from drug abuse are significant, and they affect multiple areas of an individual. They affect them physically, psychologically, and spiritually. And drug dependence, more commonly known as addiction, affects not only individuals, but families, friends, employers, healthcare providers, and others who are trying to access the healthcare system. Here in Pueblo, we do not currently have the resources in place to address the severe epidemic, and unfortunately, it seems to be getting progressively worse. However, I do applaud those who are involved in the needle exchange program, our mental health providers, medical assisted treatment providers for drug abuse, and other healthcare providers working to provide treatment for those in need. Thank you so much for what you do. The state of Colorado, and now predominantly Pueblo County, have made it no secret that they want to be the marijuana capital of the country. Marijuana, or a better term, cannabis, has become a large part of our community. There are now more cannabis shops than McDonald's or Starbucks restaurants combined, according to the Colorado Department of Revenue, totaling over 940 shops across the state. The confusion between using hemp for textiles, using cannabis for medical treatment, and using cannabis just to get high have unfortunately made this a difficult field to navigate. There is no doubt that people have come to Pueblo because of cannabis for multiple reasons, some seeking work in the field, some hoping for medical cures from it, and others wanting to use the drug to get high without legal concerns. And still others have come to Pueblo as a cheap place to live, with the perception of lax drug laws, and some have come seeking escape from whatever situation they may have been in prior to moving here. These marijuana migrants, as they've been termed, have placed a large strain on healthcare providers throughout the community. Many of these individuals have come with complex medical problems, including psychiatric and other substance abuse problems. They've come lacking social support and have dramatically increased the cost of healthcare to all consumers within our community. We don't have the healthcare resources currently in place in Pueblo to deal with this large influx of people with significant medical problems. However, the discovery and ongoing research of the way cannabinoids work in the body through the endocannabinoid system and ways to alter it chemically have certainly led to exciting possibilities of ways this might be used effectively for treatment purposes. Many studies show promising effects of the endocannabinoid system for treatment of chronic pain, spasticity from multiple sclerosis, to possibly treat Alzheimer's as an appetite stimulant, to help control nausea and vomiting in relation to chemotherapy, in addition to multiple others. This is an exciting time to look forward to medical advances and ways to use that endocannabinoid system to assist making people healthier and happier. And I applaud the research that is being done to better understand how this could be utilized further. However, it is important to note that marijuana itself is a poor term to summarize cannabis. There are widely different plant strains within the cannabis, including cannabis indica, cannabis sativa, and within these varieties, within these strains, there are multiple different varieties. Hemp, which is a variety of the cannabis sativa, for example, has drastically different properties than what a high THC cannabis indica species has. On top of this, there's over 480 different chemical compounds in the cannabis plant, and not all of them have positive effects. For example, only the chemical tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, is believed to cause the psychoactive effects or get people high and is implicated in people developing dependence. The largest review of the cannabis literature was performed by the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine and was published in January of this year. They reviewed over 10,000 studies with regards to cannabis. Their findings were extensive, but let me just state a few that I feel like are relevant to Pro Pueblo and concerns about our young people. To quote directly from their study, and I quote, "Evidence suggests that cannabis use prior to driving increases the risk of being involved in a motor vehicle accident. Smoking cannabis on a regular basis is associated with more frequent chronic bronchitis episodes, worse respiratory symptoms such as chronic cough and phlegm production. Cannabis use is likely to increase the risk of developing schizophrenia, other psychoses, and social anxiety disorders, and to a lesser extent depression. Heavy cannabis users are more likely to report thoughts of suicide than non-users, and in individuals with bipolar disorder, near daily cannabis users show increased symptoms of the disorder than non-users. With greater frequency of cannabis use, there is an increased likelihood of developing problem cannabis use, and there's evidence to suggest that initiating this at a younger age increases the likelihood of developing this. There is moderate evidence to suggest that there is a link between cannabis use and the development of substance dependence or substance disorder for substances including alcohol, tobacco, and other illicit substances. Learning, memory, and attention are impaired after immediate cannabis use, and limited evidence suggests that there are impairments in cognitive domains of learning, memory, and attention in individuals who have stopped smoking cannabis. There's limited evidence to suggest that this is related to impairments in subsequent academic achievement, education, as well as social relationships and social roles. All of these were directly quoted from their study. Certainly there are a lot of other drugs that have led to the threefold problem of drug abuse, crime, and vagrancy as well. It's not just marijuana, but my summation of the effects of cannabis were not meant to in any way deter from that, but were rather done as this has recently been a large debate around the state. I believe, however, that Pueblo can work together to tackle these issues and that we can provide more support to those in need and education for the rising generation. As we work together, we can continue to make Pueblo a wonderful place to live, raise a family, come for employment, and to get an education. Thank you to the wonderful people across the community who are working to make Pueblo a better place. Thank you.